Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenyan Revolutionary. Hey, I'm bringing this video to you because I want to talk about something that I see a lot of Kenyans, especially the pro-UDA Kenya Kwanza people, are really excited about. And also concerned because I see on Twitter and vloggers talking about the speech that RUTO gave in Paris in that climate change summit, where it was actually a concert too, where they had Billie Eilish among other artists. And it was a nice speech. I'll say that. I can't take anything away from that. But this whole idea that RUTO is the next Gaddafi, or he'll end up, his fate will be the same as Gaddafi's fate, I'm not buying it, because we have to look at what RUTO is actually talking about, all right? Because there's a lot of people are writing about RUTO is this guy who's pushing for this Pan-Africanism, Africa being independent, how we should restructure the architecture, the financial architecture of the world, where when we are borrowing, Africa should have the same rates as the European countries get when they're borrowing from the IMF or World Bank. That's all good and dandy. But, there's a difference, okay? The global elite do not care about the speeches you give, okay? What they care about is control of your resources, okay? So I'll give you an example. When Obama was the president, okay, he came in after Bush, who was very unpopular, okay? There was actually questions about how he won his election, but that's not what I want to. Bush, the second Bush, George W. Bush, led the American people to Iraq War, which lasted for I don't know how long, and it was highly unpopular. Okay, people did not like that war, as you can remember. So when Obama ran for office, he was a breath of fresh air in 2008, and when he won, everybody was in tears. The first black president. People were talking about the great speeches that he gave. He sounded like Martin Luther King. He was the best thing since sliced bread, right? But then he started governing, and we realized that this guy was actually, he took a page. He was an extension of George W. Bush agenda, okay? Because he went to war in Syria. The Iraq War actually kept on going on, and so forth. And Afghanistan also was popping off. So there was no really huge difference. And he actually, as far as his immigration policy, they were actually more stringent than George Bush policy. But that's not what I want to talk about. The reason why I mentioned that, though, is that's the same thing I see with the Kenyan President RUTO, okay? He talks a good talk, but also you have to listen to what he's saying in order to say if he's really Pan-Africanist or not, okay? Now, if you go by the speech that he started when he was sitting next to the IMF president, he was basically telling the president that he wants a favorable loan terms, okay, for Africans to get this favorable loan terms if we go borrow from the IMF or World Bank, okay? He wasn't saying that, oh, we don't need you, we don't want anything to do with you. That's the difference between him and Kagame, okay? Paul Kagame said, and there's a book called No Aid or something like that, I forgot, I read it a long time ago, 10 years ago, by Dambisa Moyo. She's a Zambian economist. She did finance and all that stuff. She worked for IMF and World Bank, and also worked under one of the Sachs, not Goldman Sachs. Yeah, she worked for Goldman Sachs too before she worked for IMF. All right? Goldman Sachs, remember that name? There's a lot of presidents that work for that Goldman Sachs. Number one, the UK Prime Minister, okay? Macron for France works for Goldman Sachs. Actually, it's rumored that he's a puppet. That's why you see all this, France is actually in this political chaos there. People are there's an uprising, basically, protest across the nation, that's nation France, because of BlackRock influence on on the French government and policies, okay? And Macron is very unpopular. But back to RUTO, okay? I keep on digressing. I want to keep this video short. The reason why I made my previous video and I mentioned that, I mentioned the quote by James Carville, the former, the political consultant who worked under Bill Clinton, who said, Hollywood is for beautiful actors, politics is for ugly actors. What basically I meant, and I want to clarify, is that politicians, they are actors. Not all of them, but most of them. They act like they care. They act like they're doing something, but in reality they don't. They're not. That's why it's like Hollywood, but this is with ugly actors, okay? So back to RUTO. RUTO, what he's basically saying, he's proposing what the global elites want. One financial system for the whole world, okay? We don't need that. My idea is, and I kind of prescribe to the Lyndon LaRouche economic philosophy, where countries should be independent, run their own economies, have their own currency backed by either gold or silver, okay, where they can borrow from locally from their own government and produce their own goods, okay? The problem is this neoliberalism neoliberal agenda, where you have cooperation, this transnational, multinational corporations like Chevron, what's the other one? Shell, who come to a country and make a deal with the local government and extract resources to process it somewhere else, then resell that same product to the country and make profits, billions, control over the economy, basically. So that's what I'm against, okay? But anyway, what I'm trying to say is this. For those who are saying, oh, RUTO should be protected, RUTO is the next Gaddafi. No, he's not. He's simply being the mouthpiece of the global elites in Africa. Yes, he's dressing up his speech as, you know, Africans should be independent and all that good stuff. But in reality, just look at Kenya. A lot of aspects of Kenyan economy is controlled by foreigners. Okay? There's nothing that RUTO has shown to say that, okay, we need to nationalize our resources. We need to increase production. Of course, he tried to increase the production by subsidizing agriculture, the fertilizing stuff. And we even see the corruption in the distribution of the fertilizer, okay? And he's not fighting the corruption, okay? So what I'm trying to say is this. If you look at the content of what RUTO is saying, there's nothing pan-African about it. It's actually part of the global agenda. But when the cameras are on and they put him in front of unsuspecting teenagers who are out there just watching, coming to enjoy Billie Eilish and other people perform, we in the African continent, we look at him like, whoa, he's the next Obama. He's the next Martin Luther King. What a great leader, because he's giving a speech in front of a bunch of teenagers somewhere in Paris. And when we look at the television and we see him passionately wagging his finger on the IMF president, telling the president that he needs a better loan terms. Africa needs a net better. The point is, Africa does not need any loan from the IMF. We should be independent. If you owe IMF, guess what that means? Most of your resources will be controlled by foreign entities. Most of our banks are controlled by foreign entities. So I urge people who are getting excited and talking about, oh my God, RUTO will be killed just like Gaddafi. No, he won't. If you look at the content of what he's saying, he's actually doing exactly what the global elites want him to do, which is further the agenda of lending African countries and keeping them poor. Okay? Anyway, I wanted to make this video short. I know it's been 10 minutes, so I'll stop here. But I will probably explain more in my other videos, all right? If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead, subscribe, like, share, comment. This is Mr. Kenyan Revolutionary. I'll talk to you guys later, and peace.